while I'm waiting to see if anyone joins, I'm going to take a look at some time log stuff that I've got in flight here. I've just rebased to resolve some conflicts. What's this? To check if this failure was related to the MR or not. Oh, lots of failures. I need to run some kind of job, which I didn't bother doing. Schema changes. Yeah, hopefully that'll all go away with the rebase. Hey, Martin.
Hey. Hopefully with working audio.
What was that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you
Sounds
doing
all right.
well?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just a lot of work lately.
So you're gonna kick back and relax now, or do you fancy driving?
Oh no, I just like to relax a bit. I have to.
Um, I was just going to continue some work on some time log stuff. So me and Marco started a few bits last week. We had some conversations. I'm not sure if you have you used any of the time tracking stuff in GitLab before?
No, I think we tried once, but we decided otherwise.
I think it would definitely be sort of classed as viable, I'm going to say. So like it may yeah, probably viable. I can't remember what the gradings are at the moment, but you can log time against issues and merge requests. You can set estimates and you can set weight. Where some of they're kind of little gaps, if you know what I mean. So I've got this MR up here where at the moment when you remove a time estimate, it just says that it was removed. So I've tweaked it so it says how much, what the time estimate was that's been removed. And the same thing when you add a time estimate, rather than just saying it's changed, it says that you actually added a new, so there wasn't anything before, and when it changes, it says what it was from and to. Hey, Missy.
Hi, thought I'd join today.
Congrats! Yeah. So, what time zone are you in today?
I am in a better time zone now. It's 8 a.m.
Cool. Awesome. So Marco and I started to talking about some time tracking stuff last week, and I made pretty good progress actually. Merging a couple of tweaks in the last couple of days. So weight is an interesting one. I don't know how people feel about weight being related to sort of time tracking and estimates and time logs. My previous company actually used weight as a quote. So they actually put quotes into the weight field. So it's either way, I think weight can be used for story points or various other things. I think they tie in quite tightly. I haven't tried to understand the full backstory, but it's a bit of a random one because weight actually is tracked in this resource weight events table. So you can actually see an example, I think, on here. You can actually see that, issue ID at this time, the weight was set to this, and then there'd be multiple entries in there. I have added now a column to that table for the previous weight because I really want to be able to report out and see when people are increasing or decreasing the weight. And ultimately, going forward, even further detail still, I'd like to see why they've done that. That's yet another challenge, but yeah, bit by bit. Marco introduced time log categories quite a while ago, but just introduced the concept, and there's no kind of way to manage them or to attach them to time logs. So we added a column to the time log table last week, which has now been merged. So now we can hopefully get the quick action updated, and eventually we'll put a UI on there as well. So I've just rebased that MR. I'm gonna remove the draft and hope that the pipeline passes shortly. This one, to improve the descriptions, I put it behind a feature flag because I thought that it was potentially going to be a breaking change. But the only reason it would be a breaking change is if people are using these system notes as kind of like an API and scraping them and kind of extracting the data. And I'm not sure, like, it sounds like Gabe's suggesting that that's not a breaking change. So I might tweak this MR to remove the feature flag. But let's wait for Nick to come back and share his thoughts. So we've rebased this one. Okay, so this column that we've added to the resource weight events, we've added the column, but it's not being populated yet. So I think that's probably the next thing to figure out.
So you're going to backfill that column with information?
I think I'm going to start easy and start populating it going forward, and have a think about backfilling it. I'm not sure how. So let me think about how we would do it. Yeah, it is doable, because ultimately we have. So if this issue has had like 3 or 4 different weights, they would all be in this table, and I guess we could just order them and grab the last one. But I feel like that would be a more challenging merge request. And also, the quicker we start getting new entries in there, the easier it is to backfill. If we did the backfill before we get new entries populating, then we end up with a gap, and then we've got to do another backfill or mop-up operation. So I talked myself into doing the easier of the two. So yeah, I guess I want to figure out where we're creating these resource weight events, and also I might, if I manage to get around to doing 2 things, the issue sort of says the reason we really want the previous weight in here is because it would allow us to show the old weight on removal notes. I'm not massively interested in removal notes, but actually updated notes. So I'm interested to see, I'm guessing that we've got 2 really weird things here. So when you add an estimate, remove an estimate, or change an estimate, the only way that's recorded is by adding a note, a system note, I should say, like this. So change the estimate or removed or added or whatever. When you change the weight, it sounds like it adds a record to this table. And I need to check, but it sounds like maybe it's not actually creating a system note. But when you load the issue, that then queries this table and almost dynamically creates the notes from this table. So we'll have a look and see if we can figure that out. As a bit of a aside, I'm working on a brand new GDK today, so hopefully I'm not going to find too many weird things about it, and I'll share that story very quickly as well. So we realize how hard it is to get GDK up and running, and we've been looking at different, using Docker, doing this, doing that, but the solution that I'm sort of putting my money on at the moment is spinning it up in a VM. and we can basically then package that VM and share it online, so anyone can download the VM and boot it straight up, and you're pretty much good to go. And I did a really quick demo of that yesterday. What's the button? I'm not going to be able to find it now, but I'll try. Here we go, GDK in a box. So essentially you download, so this is at the moment for Mac. All GitLab team members, or predominantly most of GitLab team members, are running Mac at the moment. So there's a VM, and the instructions are linked in the video. But there's a zip file you download of the image. You basically download that, double click on it, and it launches the VM, gives you like the login credentials and the URL to access it. You then run a command which adds an SSH key to your local machine, so you can connect to the VM without any passwords, etc. And then, yeah, it's up and running, basically. So in this video, it took 1 minute and 25 seconds to get GDK booted and installed and everything, essentially.
Awesome.
So yeah, I hope that that's going to work well going forwards. And then I just go in quickly, and this is the kind of page after login straight in. So I just quickly search for some of the text from that page, make a quick change to that, and then refresh to sort of see that. And again, 3 minutes to be able to get GDK running and make a change and see it, etc. Yeah, it's good. It's got Veek configured and a few other bits and pieces that just make life easier. So back on topic. But Missy, Martin, please, like if you're up for it, give that a bash at some point. If you're not a Mac user, the Linux and the Windows version. Actually got another laptop in front of me here running Linux, and I'm trying to do exactly the same thing on VirtualBox. So I'll package that up and share it hopefully in the next day or two. Okay, so resource wait events. So wait is an EE thing, so I have to try and remember that we're probably going to be in the EE code base more for this. So what on earth is this? Okay, so my English should be better, but I'm going to Google synthetic. Made of chemicals having truth or falsity. What on earth? Okay, that hasn't helped me in the slightest. What I'm guessing that means is that these aren't real notes. These are notes that are generated by reading the resource wait events table and kind of creating these fake system notes, which, yeah, I think we were under the impression that's how it was working. So this, I hope, is where I thought there might be a message. Okay, wait note. So if we look at wait note. Yeah, awesome. So this is where it says change wait to. So in here, I hope that we could do something like, so if the event has a wait, otherwise it removed it. All right, so we could do debate if when you get these. So let's do, I want to kind of do something like this. Why is it called wait? Oh, okay, because we're putting it in strong. Oh, okay. So wait from. So then do something like wait from equals HTML's okay. that is only, I don't know if I can, I feel funny about putting an if on this because it's already a ternary statement, if that makes sense. But maybe it'd be easier to do something like, oh, I don't know. I want to say like, oh no, even this is a ternary as well. Ifs within ifs. I don't know how to do. I don't really want to put like for if, like if HTML. Yes, that's the before. Will it explode or won't it explode? I just don't know if the previous way. Yeah, maybe this will work. Let's try. If I see even more fun. If there's no current way. Okay, no, that's all right. That's all right. So if yeah, so we can move that up to there. If event way else. And have that in there. That one in here. But then we want right to if this is what I want to do. Added way if event dot previous way. Not that.
Isn't it unless in Ruby?
Yeah. But this is where it gets a bit horrible with all these like ifs within ifs because I'd rather maybe I do a nested if, but I know it's going to complain. Reboot up, or I think it will anyway.
What if we do an unnested if with the first condition being event wait and event previous wait?
My
Then
problem with that
if...
is that then we end up with an else if which has got two conditions, whereas we don't really need to. I'll see what it says. I'll see what it says. I might even ask our rubber duck electronic AI like friend what they think. So if there was a previous way, then we can say whatever it was, changed way from to. And else we can then do the same thing, I guess. If previous way. Oops. So change the weight from something to something else, added weight. I think this actually should be a separate MR. I don't think I should start populating this field at the same time. I think I can do this one separately from the one that starts populating it. So yeah, if there's a weight and there was a previous weight, we changed it from that to that. Otherwise, we added. Do you feel like this should have the word of in there, or just added weight and then the weight?
I'm not that
think it
much
makes
of a native
sense.
speaker.
With Missy or without? Sorry.
I think with makes sense.
Okay. No, I definitely for the this one I did it without. Removed time estimate 4 hours, added time estimate 3 hours, but then in a comment said, I wonder if of makes it a little bit nicer, added time estimate of 3 hours, removed time estimate of. So
sorry, I've just realized I've been muted this whole time.
You've been talking at me and we've all been ignoring you.
I said hello and then I started talking about the weight text and then no one, yeah. That's
hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
I'm good. Hey, Missy. Hey, Martin. And hello, Lee.
So
I was going to say, to me, it makes more sense to say added weight text weight. I'm assuming weight text is just a number in this case.
Yes. So added.
Then you're saying added 5 weight, added 100 weight. Yeah. Added weight of 100. Reads weirdly.
Let me typical I haven't got duo on let's ask him on here. Right at the top, and I missed which sounds better. Added 100 weight or added weight of 100. I guess it all depends on what you consider the weight to actually be. Maybe if you're thinking it of like story points, or if you're thinking about it as I don't know, but both phrases are grammatically correct and mean the same. The weight may sound slightly more formal, however, in most option. I'm going to stick with of the moment if that doesn't offend you too much.
No.
Although that's even interest, I think.
See, because that one had definitely removed 100 weight. Because when you're adding the weight, are you adding it to what was there before? So if you had 20 weight, it's now 120.
Well, that's the point. You've changed the weight if there was already one on there. Added weight of, removed weight of. Removed.
Oh, so it's not really adding, then it's setting the weight.
Yes.
Okay.
But setting doesn't differentiate, and I think it's nice to differentiate between adding, removing, and changing.
Okay. Because when I read added, I thought it was like you were adding on to what was previously there.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Because in that case, I think set weight of 100.
You are adding the weight, because if there's not a previous weight on there, then you're both setting it and adding it, if that makes sense.
So it's only if it's 0 to start, basically.
Yeah. I
suppose. Oh, no. It's not only if it's 0. 0 and null are different for a weight. You can have a weight of null, and that doesn't count as anything. Or you can say this weight was 0, which is basically I didn't do anything for it.
So change weight from that to that, set weight to that, removed weight of that, or someone that can't spell. I'm now, oh God, this is such a stupid, I still got it wrong. Was it right in the first place? It just looks wrong.
I know, I've looked at it too long now.
Yeah, the word
I was going to say, that's not how you spell weight.
A bizarre combination of letters.
W-E-I-G-H. I'm glad we're all having this weird, like, that word looks bonkers.
W-E-I-G-H. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should know this. I'm teaching my daughter phonics at the moment, so I should know that the I-G-H.
What is it? Yeah, it's like wigged.
Yeah. Okay, let's not stress too much about that. So what I now need to do is find out where the tests are. So wait, notes.
Can we
Wait, so why-
can you explain why the else for removal, the nested if else is
Thank you. That's what I was
necessary?
going to say.
So these are both the same. The else is because we're not backfilling this, and so there'll be records that don't have a previous weight because previous weight column hasn't been populated yet.
Oh no, I think were you referring to why is there an if previous weight in the second else? Because like why is there a different text there?
Because we can't say what weight was removed if there wasn't a previous, if we don't know what the previous weight was.
Yeah.
Migration, yeah.
I was going to say I think just removed weight sounds fine, but yeah, if you want.
My as I say, I would say selfish, but like it's like being able to see that and making it consistent as well. Like I want to be able to look down. Otherwise, I don't think there would be. Yeah, you would have to scroll up to the previous notes to see what. Well, you know what was it changed or removed or whatever. So that's interesting. Oh, okay, because it's a shared. I think note for weight. It's like a system. No, doesn't look like it actually. Action is passed in. Wait. I'm curious what. Doesn't look like it's actually checking the text, does it really? It's checking. It's a system note. It's a valid note. It's for the right project author. The metadata is good, but it's not actually checking the note in any way.
That's probably a good thing. It makes the test less fragile.
Yes and no, but like my theory, if I go in and do what I've just done, I would normally use profanities to describe what I've done, but gone and messed stuff up, I should expect that to break tests, and if it doesn't, then yeah, that's
but all you've done is change the text for the note. Like what the note does is the same. It's just the response back.
Yeah, debatable.
Which is why I think they may not have included it, because it does make it fragile. If you notice a typo or something, then you've got to go through and fix everything up.
Well, I'm gonna go and add some in here, I think, or try. Describe class from event. Okay, so we have to create the event. Awesome. So we should be able to do context. So we got HTML and not H. We've potentially got 8 different scenarios here. I think. I wonder if we can use a nice table syntax. Sorry, Missy, were you gonna?
I just have a quick question. Why is the unless still there in the logic?
Yeah, no reason at all, I don't think. Thank you for spotting it. So yeah, I think we've got a bunch of different. So I forget how you do table syntax. Google to the rescue.
Can't you ask Duo to make one for you?
Try. Don't open.
Very
See
nice
what he
there.
says. I have to be polite. My wife tells me off for getting angry at Alexa all the time. But one day
I get
it will
so
rise
annoyed at
against
Google.
us. Oh, I thought it just said that. Here is an example. Give feedback. It's just being a bit slow. Okay, we'll give it some time. I think this does. I don't know. I don't remember if it's like array. And if I search for with them in the code base, that'll. Okay. Yeah, this is more what I remember it being like. Yeah. No, that's more complex than I want. But so we're probably going to have HTML. Yeah, HTML. Then previous. Wait. No. Or expected no, or something like that. So it was wait, previous wait, and HTML, and then note. Yeah, cool.
Is expected note the text you get back?
The text, yeah. that we're going to test against. Okay, so it suggested the one that Google returned, and it also cut off prematurely.
I wonder if the AI gets these feedback prompts so it can say if you were abusive or offensive. Lee didn't say please.
I'm just going to put this in. I genuinely think that'd be like, I don't know, funny is quite the right word, but interesting for it to be like, yeah, no need to be such an idiot about it. Okay, I'm not sure if this message was already there or if that was referring to me submitting the feedback, but we've done it.
No,
okay.
It was already there, I think.
So, so we're gonna have. We said there were 4 and 4, right? So we've got 4 parameters for each one, all right? Just yeah, and then I can copy them all, right? So true, previous. Now I got to remind myself, I think you're right. I think it can be null or 0. So let me just so I can't do a wait because that's a merge request. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it came up in the autocomplete, yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks for pointing that out, Andrew. I hope 0 doesn't evaluate as falsy. I don't think it will.
No, I used the API and that nil was a special.
So it
shouldn't that be nil? NIL?
Maybe.
In Ruby?
Yes, it should, absolutely. So then the new weight is 1. Okay, let's copy that 8 times or 4 times. So true. So it can be nil. It could be number. No, wait a minute. Yeah, so it's changing it from something to something. It's changing it. I feel like I'm missing one. So I thought there were going to be 8 paths here. Yeah. Yeah, it could actually be nil and nil because the previous weight might not be populated because we're not backfilling it. So with HTML, it's going to look something like change weight from that to nope, that would be for that one. So with HTML, it was strong, I think, right?
That says string.
It's so funny. These words, obviously, in my I don't know, my machine brain is just like, no, why would you be writing strong? Like the string is. These either. Okay, so we've got a problem. We've got a problem. We don't know. We're not backfilling this. We don't know when the previous weight is nil. We don't know if it's nil because it actually was nil, or if it's because we haven't recorded it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this one here is making an assumption. Or is it? No, actually, I think we're all right now because of what you said, Andrew, because we're not saying we added a weight.
Yeah.
That is always.
You're just saying that you're setting the weight to this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, so nil to nil would be removed weight. 1 to nil would be removed weight of
strong one.
Yeah. And then that would be set. I keep opening that. Go away. Yeah, set the weight to strong 1. And then we should be able to copy and paste those.
How did you just do that?
That is Option and Shift. So you click somewhere, hold Shift and Option, and then you can drag down. And yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, very cool.
This, on the other hand, I'm going to do it in the most manual way possible.
I was going to say, you want, for you, it'd be Command D, I think.
Oh, that allows you to do multiple selections at the same time, essentially, is it? So set the weight to 1, change the weight from 1 to 2, change the weight. Okay, awesome. So we've done our where do. And so we need an end. Oh, already had an end. And then with them do, it should be, I'm scared of saying it, but it should be straightforward because there's no external, there's no mock-in, there's no crazy. We just got to create a resource event. So be let let event. assume we don't really need to provide. It's probably a good idea to do it though. So previous way or be. So can I just reference? This is, yeah, just reference some like normal variables by the looks of it. Previous way is previous way. And way is way. And then it renders the expected what's it, I guess. Then here, so how we actually class from event, the event, that. And then we'll call in new. Oh, so actually that's going to return. I might just make this public. I don't know if that's a good idea. And I forget how to do. So this is note text. I should do scribe. Always get this wrong. So I don't know whether it should be a hash or a dot. We'll figure that out in a minute. So in here. Yeah. So, and then we'll say expect note text to equal expected. No chance that will work first time, eh? Oops. And also probably first time I've run specs, so I'm gonna have to wait for Gitaly to recompile and whatnot. Wonder if I can start. Check out. I can't preserve data in system notes and deletion. I'm just going to attach it to this one, I think. Oh. True. Okay. What did I do wrong? So where and do? Wonder if that shouldn't be in a context. I don't think it should make any difference. You know what it could be? just be as simple as having to add include. This is where I'd love the AI like Duo or something to actually be like ahead of you and actually telling you before you've even asked it. You're a Muppet and you've forgotten to include the. Is that what Clippy used to do? Or did he wait until you asked? I can't remember.
I think he was very up in your face, wasn't he?
I think so.
I do think it would be good if you could get like choose a personality for Duo and whatnot. Like you were saying there, like you being a Muppet. Like if the GitLab bot was just like, "Hey Lee, you Muppet, you missed this."
Yeah. Definitely choose between like formal and informal and like
Yeah.
offensive or profound or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It had a bit of character, right?
Yeah. You
Unfortunately,
twonk.
some poor person needs to like train it that, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, maybe they don't, because I was trying to understand. Oh, like Missy, you're the perfect person. You can like solve all this now for us. So, do you want to share with Andrew, or like I didn't want to say anything on your behalf, or?
Oh, I've joined GitLab. This is my second day.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow,
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, I'm super pumped.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm starting on the code creation team, which is working on code suggestions. So like when you're typing in the editor and then it adds a little suggestion, that'll be the main
Ah,
feature that my team is working on. But I think we're all pretty
cool.
linked, so we'll also be dealing with the AI framework team and then the Duo chat team and that stuff, but all the AI
The
stuff.
talking all of a sudden I just thought, hang on a minute, this sort of falls into but again it made me realize we should sort of add this as a sort of step or whatever to the instructions, because I haven't set up the GitLab workflow extension since setting up this new VM. So I'm gonna do that now, and then hopefully
Are you in a VM now then? Or is this
yes,
GitLab's in a VM?
Yeah, so I'm connected via SSH to do the work I'm doing.
How is all of that stuff going?
So you missed me showing off at the beginning of the session. So there's a video. The tests are
I can
running.
catch up on it later.
Yeah, 3 minute video, super quick. Basically, if you're on Mac, I released a new version of the VM. And I'm forgetting to pass that argument in, aren't I? You can download a UTM VM and spin it up, and it takes you just spin it up and GitLab's there and ready, and you're good to go straight away. The entire video, me talking nonsense, and I actually made a small front end change and did a couple of other little bits. Took like 3 minutes. So yeah, it's I'd say it's going well.
Cool.
We want to. Okay, so the problem here is we want to pass in. So I'm going to do. How do I do this? Can I do this inside the what's it? And yeah, I was saying I'm going to do the same. I've got a Linux laptop in front of me where I'm doing the same for VirtualBox. So was it from event? But I'm having some weird networky issues, to be honest, with the laptop. Like to download MinIO took, I don't know, like half an hour or something. It's just a bit weird. And then it's stuck on cloning the GitLab repo at the moment. And it's set to do it quietly, which essentially means I'm getting no sort of feedback, no output whatsoever. And it's just been on that for about 3 hours. So I have no idea if it might not have even started. It might have just kind of completely hung.
Can you just go down to what you were changing before? Because
Yes.
you had from event, is that correct?
no. That should be no, wait, no, or wait, no, or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. I put note text. I was being silly and using autocomplete. Wasn't code suggestions. That's not to blame. It was just autocomplete.
I got code suggestions working actually on one of my projects.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
it's pretty awesome. So let me just remind myself, like, we're in the free beta at the moment still, are we? So everyone can use it. But you have to be part of an ultimate group, I think. But then at some point they're then going to start introducing a fee structure, I think. I don't know. Given 1, expected 0. Weird optional arguments. Yeah, so I think there's a date at some point when they're gonna. I think I don't know.
It is supposed to become an add-on. I think that's one of the big projects that my team is taking on in the next couple months.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't, like, because it's such a big thing and I've not followed it closely enough. I know at one point I was confused because it stopped working. And I found out the reason it stopped working was because the files had been like limited, so it will only do code suggestions on like .rb files and .js files and a few others. But obviously that meant that .view files weren't being, like, it wasn't working on .view files. So we kind of fixed that. That was just kind of a bit of a, oh, well, we filtered the file types that we do and we hadn't sort of listed all the different, like, because JavaScript could probably be .ts or it could be there's probably some other weird and wonderful extensions, but I don't know, like, if that's been kind of kept or if it's now kind of reading the file to try and figure out if it's if it should do it or not. So I just need to add the feature category to these bits to shut this thing up. Feature category. What would the feature category be? I think team planning or project management or team. Team planning. Oh, it is. Okay. Why that search didn't work. Okay, there's clearly something I'm doing wrong there.
I think you need a colon in front of team planning.
Awesome, thank you. That looks really weird, doesn't it? Awesome. Rerun. Hope that's good. So yeah, I feel like that should be an isolated change on its own, an MR just for that. So we can see a difference between changing the way, removing the way, or setting, which in theory will, if someone starts brand new, that actually means that they've set the weight for the first time. Yeah, I'm still not sure about this one, you know. Set weight to, I think that's all right, but I'm worried if it's misleading because we use change when we definitely have a from and a to. But if we maybe have a from, but we just don't know it, I'm not sure whether saying that set the weight to, like, because it looks like you're clearly just differentiating between. Oh no!
Could you change that first text to make it a bit more consistent? Something like set weight to something from something else.
Could do. Yeah. I think what I'm in the back of my mind just considering that we do the same thing if we're going to do that with this. So we say that you change estimate to something from. So I might just name drop you there, Andrew. Change time estimate to from. But yeah, I think I'm all right with that. So we do the do first from after. And then so gonna have a look if we can find a weight note which we updated. Okay, yeah, there's another spec, at least one, if not a couple, we need to update there. There are ones, Andrew, that I think more, if anything, should be what's the word? Made a bit more like generalized a bit more, you know, like the tests that we saw earlier, so that they don't, so that these wouldn't all need updating. So let's try. Why does that always happen? I'm gonna cancel my clone on this other machine and try and figure out. Yes, there we go. Yeah. So which one? I think they're all going to be set weight. Yeah. Ignore that one. Working on that one. This one here. Let's go for set. See what happens. Oh no, this is a feature spec. I'll be amazed if this works. Again, though, it reminds me of something that I need to do for this VM. Yeah, it couldn't connect to Chrome. Just gonna let that one run in CI for now. Oh, this is a feature spec as well. Damn. Hope for the best. Or should I try and figure out how to get Selenium set up? Well, that's interesting. It's just a syntax error, but no such.
I think you need the driver installed.
Shall I, if I look for GitLab specifically, developments, or is it Chrome driver? I don't know. Chrome driver.
Brew installs Chrome driver. Do you have Brew installed?
Don't
Oh.
know. I don't know. I know we use it on Mac, but no, it doesn't look like we do. No longer. Interesting. Sure, it must be document. Let's try GitLab development kit. It's the best place for instructions. No, not that. Test. Selenium. Run. Running tests. That's what we want. Surely it tells us in here. Chrome driver. Okay. Chrome driver is automatically installed when running this by Selenium Manager. Apparently not. Shall I try? Does it need to be a specific version? Should I just try like apt-get install Chrome driver? I don't know if it's got dash or a.
Probably want to do a search.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be a specific. Driver problems. That's all of them. So Linux, or let's do Debian specifically.
Sure, if you have to do it through the ASDF manager.
Oh, okay.
Since all the GitLab stuff is done with ASDF.
Yeah, but then you would have thought that I don't know why GDK wouldn't install that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I had to set this up back at IntelliJ sometime. And I don't think there's an actual package. You've got to download some dodgy file from somewhere on Linux to install it.
That seemed to. My suspicion is it may not work because it's looking for a specific version, and yeah, I'm not even sure because I've installed this as a headless Debian VM if it can even run. Like, because it needs Chrome installed as well as Chrome driver. Maybe, yes, no, I don't know.
Maybe. Let's see if we get another error now.
I think you can install the headless Chrome.
Okay.
The same, yeah. Message driver.
Yeah, so it's trying to run
Ruby can.
the Selenium Manager, browser Chrome, output JSON. I mean, should I just try running?
Is that?
That's a gem. Let's just browser Chrome, output JSON.
In the error message, there was an URL which said, please visit this URL to debug the error.
Okay.
Maybe that's.
Yeah, I think it could be that Chrome's not installed. Like maybe Chrome driver is, but Chrome isn't. I don't know. Try doing. forget what it is that you have to do. Local room driver. Wow, that's a mouthful. 62 V2. No,
6236.
36. Thank you.
Exec format error. Cannot.
That
And then
seems like
success.
Success.
now we need to install Chrome.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, but then can I just do that or you?
No. Chrome's not in the repo. You've got to add it from Google.
Oh God.
You might be able to install Chromium. That should work
Yeah,
as well.
Chromium sounds better than Chrome, yeah.
Andrew, I should try and enlist you to help me help me figure out how I can get the VM size down. So it's about 20 gig compressed, it's 7.5 gig. So it'd be nice
Whoa.
to strip some fat off the bone there, but
What's the base OS? Debian?
Debian, yeah. I'm tempted to call it a day. I'd kind of like to suss this out. I'm not too fast at running the pipeline, but it's just, I guess, if it errors, if it fails, then I've got to go for a whole nother round.
I don't know what that exec format error is. That's weird.
It's just
Set format error. Usually it means you have the wrong executable format, but it also can mean that it's like trying to run a shell script in something.
no.
It's not. I've had it in several occasions when it was trying to execute something that's not executable.
Can you jump into the thingy terminal?
The thingy, yeah.
Thingy, yeah. Can you type uname-a? That's oh, okay. Yeah, so that would be the problem. I think you downloaded the x64. If you scroll up.
Isn't it auto-select the right architecture?
When you did the ASDF stuff, I think it was.
Yeah, it should, I thought that should take care of and I mean, I don't think this error's changed. I think this error was I might know actually. So I had to patch something on GitHub a while ago. I'm just going to see if I'm signed in on my other browser. Some things don't recognize when this says AArch64, they don't understand it. They're expecting it to say ARM64. So Mac, I think, says ARM64 there. So if I ARM64, yeah. So something. So we actually found an ASDF script that needed, I don't know what to call it, like needed a kick essentially. So what was it? It was this ASDF Veil. Show you if I can find the merge request. Yeah. So it may be completely unrelated, but this was sort of saying, okay, if it's this, use this. If it's this, use this. But this was missing, and then it was failing. But this was being swallowed because of this echo-e, I think, and it was causing it not to error. So how do I actually find ASDF Chrome driver?
I'm checking their script now, and it Mac ARM64 Arch equals Darwin. Arch equals ARM64 platform Darwin.
Yeah, it's missing, isn't it? There's no AArch 64, so I could potentially. Now I'm just trying to remember how I would, or if or how I was able to patch it, if that makes sense, like real time without. I mean, I could just maybe
So
install
if
it.
you do uname -m, is that going to say AArch 64?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to remember. I think there was a way of me like patching this locally.
Can you just
to
search
get
for that
it.
file?
Yeah, that's what
It should be in the .asdf folder.
That's right. Good thinking. Yeah. So it was giving me this. Yeah, so it'll be in here maybe or not. No. Maybe not in installs. Where'd it be? Downloads.
Repository. Downloads, yeah.
Oh, no, plugins maybe actually. Yeah. There we go.
And then was it lib?
Right. So we copy this. No, this. Oops.
You missed the file name. utils.bash.
Thank you. Really, the sensible thing though would be to open it in Visual Studio and not in Nano, right?
Not in VI.
What's that?
Not in Vim.
Oh yeah, everyone. Yeah, I'm not that hardcore. So I'm just gonna do. Oh, but what actually?
If you copy,
I need to find out if there actually is a
there is, yes.
64 that's for Linux. Yeah.
Oh, would it not use the Mac ARM 60? Oh, yeah, probably not.
No.
In which case, no, there isn't.
Oh.
There's a Linux 64, Mac ARM 64, Mac X64, Win32, Win64.
On Linux, WebDrivers install. This is closed. So what's the solution that works?
Linux ARM 64 support Electron provides a drive.
I just try and. Is that the latest to 21.2? Or do I need? I don't know if I specifically like. I don't know how that number relates to this number.
That's just a version of Chrome. Yeah.
So should I just try and sort of like paste this binary over the one that's. This is a terrible idea. This is never going to work, is it? So
it hurts so much. It has to work.
And now I can't even remember how on earth I'd get it into. So this is where it's trying to put it. So I should be able to. This is where you're gonna shoot me for my Linux. So it'd be SCP. Where is it?
You'll have to unzip it first.
I've done that already.
Downloads.
I'm just trying to figure out. Yes, you're right. It's in downloads. Chrome driver / Chrome driver, and then I want to SCP that to Debian gdk.local into that path.
Is it just the one
I think
file?
You have to do -R for, or it's in single executable. Okay.
Now I was expecting a prompt to say you're going to overwrite something.
No, that's not how SCP works.
Oh, okay, okay.
This
Oh
works.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Not the
Ooh.
right version though, but we'll see if it works anyway. Oh, don't you love it? Oh
I'd
god,
say we take any version if it works.
there's video evidence of our tomfoolery as well. All right, let's see what happens.
No warnings for Ruby lesson 3.2.
I still think it might. I don't, yeah, my brain doesn't really understand the whole like UI versus no UI and whether Chrome can be launched without a UI, etc. But we'll find out, I guess. Yeah, I think this is probably
No.
where I give up. But I will try browser Chrome output JSON. So even Selenium Manager, so it's actually Selenium Manager that is complaining about. So just quickly see if I can do the same thing. Selenium Manager, Linux ARM64.
Three old Debian packages. That sounds reliable.
But then I don't want Chromium. I don't want any of these three things, do I? I want the Selenium Manager. Yeah.
What's actually happening inside? Is that a gem file, the Selenium Manager? Or is it a
Good
script or something? If you
question.
do
Yeah,
file,
it's a gem. So no, it's actually it's a binary in.
yeah, if you type in file and then paste the path to that,
What will that do?
it'll tell you what kind of file it is. So it's 60, yeah, x64, x86 64. So it's a regular thingy for us normal people, not
Okay.
So where did that come from though? Did that come from ASDF?
Good question.
ASDF
No,
installs Ruby
it's
gems.
part of the gem, I would say. Selenium WebDriver is the gem.
Oh, that sounds.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Again, it's closed, so what's the solution? I mean, it sounds like maybe we can patch something in. Um, uh, that closed my other window, helpful.